Hello, and welcome to Habits of Influence, a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly side of entrepreneurship and starting a movement where you become the person other people wish to follow. Today, we have Lisa Hauser joining us. She's the owner of Utopia Salon here in Vancouver, Washington. She's an amazing community member, does so much for our community, and we've had the wonderful privilege of getting to know Lisa over the last few years, and I'm super excited to have you on with us.
Thank you, Ian. I'm excited to be here.
So just to start off, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about you, maybe what got you started in the industry that you're in, and just what do you love about what you do?
All right. Well, I actually kind of fell into the hair industry, kind of. My mom was a hairstylist, and I was in school, went during high school to trade school in New York, and kind of like Cascadia Tech here in Vancouver. And I originally wanted to take auto mechanics, and they would not allow me to take auto mechanics or auto body. So my next class was going to be graphic art. And back then in the 80s, graphic art meant that you could paint the signs that went in grocery store windows, which is not even in existence anymore. And that teacher, it was I feel like art's subjective. And even back then, I didn't like to be told what to do. So then my next choice was hair, and took cosmetology, fell in love with it. And 36 years later, I'm still at it. But owning a salon was never in my dreams. Being a hairstylist was not in my dreams. And but I did fall in love with it. And for a lack of a great place to work, when I moved out here, that's what prompted me to start my own salon. Here I
I was
am.
about, I was about to say 36 years later, you're still slinging scissors.
That's right. That's right. It's
So
been a
I
great
just
journey.
have to ask because you said you wanted to go into auto mechanics and auto body and you weren't allowed. Is that
Right.
because you were a woman?
Yes. Yeah, they would
Oh,
not.
we're going to talk about that a little bit because that's amazing. It's not
Yeah,
amazing
and
that
that's
happened, but
in the 80s. So even in the 80s, it was they would not allow me. And I fought as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old with the school district. But unfortunately, then I didn't win. But you know, I still love cars, and I've done a little auto body on my own, and so it's fun. It's fun.
that's good to know. So if I need some body work, I can
Yes.
call my friend and be like, yo, I don't have much to take care of up here, but my vehicle could use a little,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Um, that's awesome. So one of the things we talk about a lot on this podcast is the ugly side of business. Obviously, we want to focus on the good, and I'm going to do a little plug for you real quick because your salon continuously gets recognized as one of the top in the nation, not just
Mhm.
local in Vancouver, in the nation, United States. You're one of the top salons. Um, how do you attribute that? Like, what's created that success for you?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think the biggest part is our culture, and um it goes back to that treating people the way you would like to be treated. And remembering, what it is like to be the employee, to be the client, to work hard for your money, staying humble and staying grounded. And for the salon, we really believe in education and community. It's like our two biggest things that we focus on. And so for community, it's all aspects of being involved in the community, whether it's giving back, gift certificates or haircuts for kids back to school, or, just causes, Relay for Life, just giving back in any way the community needs it. I mean, it could be helping out, volunteering, or pitching in at somebody else's company.
And I know
And
you also do, if I'm not mistaken, is it veterans haircuts?
Yeah.
And you've
Yep.
also, I remember a while back, you also helped out with I don't know if it was a homeless program or something you did, like haircuts for the homeless.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
which is great from a local standpoint, but how do you get that nationwide recognition? How do people in New York know you exist, or in Florida, or in Mississippi, or whatever? How do you get ranked as one of the top in the nation?
So there's a couple of different ways, and we belong to a couple associations for our industry. And so one of them, Intercoiffure, it's actually worldwide. But you apply like anything else, you apply, and I like to call it the hair mafia. So you put yourself in a circle in a room full of the top in our industry, like the leaders that I have watched since I was just starting. And you basically explain to them why you are cool enough to hang out with them and why you should belong to this organization. And it goes on numbers. The top 200 in the nation is also revolves around submitting your numbers, your growth. You have to prove evidence that your clients continually come to you, that you are part of the community, that you give back, that you have a culture where your team loves working for you, and what do you offer them. So it goes beyond like your paycheck and benefits, but we like to grow our team as a whole person, not just technically what they could do for hair. So we have financial classes, and we have social media classes, and we have personal development classes, and we have speakers come in, and so we're constantly growing the team as the individual, not just to benefit us. And I think that speaks a lot for who we are, and educating our clients. And sometimes we're not the best fit for a client, and we let them know. And so I think just being honest and educating everybody, I think that goes a long way.
Which is great. And you started off when we talked about getting into the industry. You said you couldn't really find a place you enjoyed working, so you created your own, basically, and you created that vision for, what would this environment be that I would want to be in. And like you said, the personal development on the employee side, and I was literally just having this conversation not even 10 minutes ago. So it's really in alignment with what I like to do as well. So we were talking about, we're having a team meeting right after our conversation here, and one of the things is we're talking about their goals and how we can support our employees reaching their goals as well, and develop them as people, which is, I think it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Probably one of the reasons we're friends. And then on top of that, obviously starting out your business, there's been some speed bumps, some hiccups, some oh crap, I didn't realize that moments. What would you say were some of the difficulties or some of the struggles you've had as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, owning a salon in your industry, or just as a business owner in general?
Yeah. I think a huge obstacle is the belief, other people's beliefs in you, and they'll talk you down, they'll talk you out of it, they'll tell you you're crazy, and you start to believe it, and you wonder, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And you just really, that was a huge obstacle, but I'm also one of those people who like to prove people wrong. So it's also a great motivator, but not for everybody. And really, I tell people, I've had my salon this last month. We celebrated our 19th year. And the first 8 years or so, I was a hairstylist that owned a hair salon. And then I took some classes and got some coaching, and it flipped. And I'm a business owner that's a hairstylist. And it's a huge difference. Having the right mindset for business. Everybody thinks they could do it better than the other person. Some can.
So true.
Some can. And but mindset is really huge. It can be your biggest obstacle if you allow it to be. And then really, my suggestion would be to learn business, make your decisions based on numbers and facts and not side calculator, as we like to call it, or my husband Jason loves to call it, the side calculator, which is kind of like your goals and your gross, and not the facts and the net. So that was kind of an obstacle. Finding, everybody is struggling, especially these days, with staff. Staff is a big obstacle.
Always.
Yeah. And our industry is based on, lately, independence. Everybody is independent. Nobody wants to be told what to do. Everybody wants to have their own business and keep their own money, or all the money. And I think they quickly realized that nobody gets to keep all the money. There's always expenses. And so we're one of very few salons that's not a corporate salon that is employees. So that's an obstacle.
I was gonna ask that question too, because knowing you and knowing what you want your brand to represent, and if I'm safe to say it, you're a little bit more of a luxury brand, right? You're not like a Supercuts, or you're
Right.
not. People aren't going to you just for a quick trim. They're coming to you to get styled. They're coming to you for color. They want to look good. I don't know what your typical demographic is, but you're not dealing with just a basic haircut. You're doing service. You're doing above and beyond.
Experience.
Yeah.
We provide an experience with the service and not just get in, get out.
So how do you navigate that when you have people who want to be their own boss or their own program coming into work at your facility? How do you decide who's a good fit for you or not a good fit? Or how do you decide whether to keep somebody or let somebody go? Or, could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. For me, we're slow to hire, and sometimes we're slow to let go. I know it says be slow to hire and quick to fire. Sometimes, we give a couple of chances, but it's really comes down to the hiring, and we're definitely not quick with that. So we have, your normal application process. Our application is longer than, where do you live and how much do you want to get paid, and your past jobs. I don't care so much about your past jobs. It's more about who you are. So we'll have 2 pages of questions just based on, like, what would your best friend say about you? If you could do anything, money was not an object, what would that be? So trying to get the character before the technical skills. I can teach people how to cut hair and how to apply color. It's a little harder to teach the person's behavior and character. We work on it. We love enhancing people's, but you can't necessarily change it unless they're willing to. So we do that. And then we have them come hang out in the salon for a couple of hours. I will generally not talk to them too much and let them interact with the team. The team will decide, is this a good fit? We want them to make sure that we're a good fit for the potential employee, and we want the team to feel comfortable with that person as well. And if there's any sort of uneasiness on either side, we don't even move forward. And so it's like a 3-4 step process.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that I think a lot of people don't think about, is when you're onboarding, how do you decide, is this person a good fit for our organization? And being able to have your team, and I would say especially in your industry, because it's very, if I can use it, I mean, there's kind of like a little bit of snobbiness to the hairstylist industry, right? You have people that obviously they're the best stylists, they're the best color, they're the this, and you can't compare them, and you get that little bit of like mean girl stuff going on, so having somebody who does gel and flow with your team, is pretty critical. And it's funny because we do a lot of that stuff too. And with our meeting today is we're bringing our leads in, and they're going to be training and working with people. It's a working interview, and they get to come in and say, we're going to let them know that, you're here for this meeting. However, this, how you perform at this training piece will determine, one, if we keep you, if you're a good fit, and two, how consistently we're going to bring you on, because we need people who are going to hustle. And you're so right. And I love how we're so in alignment with this. Is you can't teach personality, is what I say.
Right.
You can teach skills. I can teach anybody how to do what we do.
Right.
But I can't teach the level of skill. I can't teach heart. You can't teach the emotion piece. You can't teach the commitment. You can't teach the core values. You either have those or you don't have those. And there are some people who might be able to blend and say, okay, maybe I'm not as XYZ as I want to be, but I'll work on that to get there. But if you're like a dead rock, or you're grumpy all the time or whatever, people don't want to work with you.
Yeah. I think it's a huge obstacle right now. And I admittedly, made many bad choices, because it's like, oh my gosh, I need somebody right now. You're breathing, you showed up, you're hired, right? I need somebody today. So I've definitely done that in the past. And it just never works out. It never works out. Your gut, you've got to trust your instincts and trust your people. And so we definitely have not taken that approach for the last couple of years. And if you have the desire and you have goals, and we don't have to be in alignment with everything, because that's what makes us all, individuals, and it makes our salon fun, because we're like all different kinds of personalities. But there's the few key things that we look for, drive, goals, ambition, coachable. Coachable is probably the first thing. Is that you have to be open to learning and open to criticism, and retraining. And if you're not, then there's no point in going any further. So if you do say you're the best, we do have a self-evaluation also on our application, 1 to 10. And if you're all 10s, I won't even go any further with you. And you could be amazing, but I won't go any further, because there's always room for improvement. I still take classes 36 years later. So if you feel like you're at the top of your game, then we're not for you.
And that's a couple of things that you mentioned that I want to kind of focus on for a second. One is that is always remaining teachable. And regardless of how long you're in an industry, there's always more to learn. There's always more to learn. And I think that's something a lot of people forget when they get into business. You think you have it all figured out, but I mean, I know, and I know Maria and whatever. You'd ask her, I'm always messing up or doing something, and say, man, I need to get better at this. I know for a fact there's things I am not good at, period.
Right.
And no matter how hard I try, it's just not who I am. It's not my personality. But you mentioned retraining people, and I've seen that before when people have worked in a similar industry. Maybe they work for a different salon, or maybe they just cut hair on the side with their friends or whatever, and they come in. It is almost like a retraining period, right? Where you have to get adapted to how we do things and how our culture is. And even though you might be a great stylist, which is great, that's why we're hiring you, but there's different ways in having to retrain how we're doing things, or how our services are being delivered, or the communication, or whatever it is. So I'm glad you touched on that, because I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot.
Right. Because everybody has, that's what makes every business different, right? That's what makes Dutch Bros different from Starbucks and BlackRock. It's just a different vibe. It's a different way that they speak. It's all coffee. Yeah. So it's the same in any business, any restaurant, any hair salon. And that's why it's so important to find those people who are, fit your culture, instead of, because if you don't have a culture, and if you're not teaching and holding everybody accountable to that, there's always a culture, and it'll just create its own culture. And That's usually not a good thing when it just unfolds because there's no there's no structure. So
Yeah.
structure is definitely, and I've learned that, that's all part of those, things you've learned and bumps in the road and obstacles, right? If you're not learning, you're not growing. And so you just adjust and
Got to go through it to grow through it, right?
that's right.
Um, so I'm going to hit you a little hard on this one.
Yeah.
What is the ugly side? Like, as in your industry or business, what's the ugly? Tell me the ugly. Tell me the stuff that nobody talks about, the stuff that's the hush hush, the stuff that nobody wants to hear, nobody, the can of worms that nobody talks about.
Hmm. I'm pretty open, so I don't the ugly side, well, I'll say the ugly side of business is don't believe everything you hear from anybody. I mean, there's just, you have to stay open, and objective. And people are really good at telling you what they want you to hear. So the ugly part is when you find out like the truth. Um, People are hard. People are hard. Any business you have that is around people, uh, people are hard, and learning to stay calm and objective, um, when dealing with people. I think that's it. It's not always really something that you did, and people could just be having a bad day, and you're just the person they're taking it out on. And it's it's so hard. I mean, there's so many ugly things in business. Um, you know,
The
your net.
stuff nobody talks about. What
Yeah.
is the stuff nobody talks about? Because we
The
always have the people who are like, we talk a lot about those overnight successes or the gurus that want you to buy their programs but what's the stuff that nobody talks about? The really ugly stuff.
Well, one, I think that nobody is an overnight success. That's a lie. So that goes back to that, like, don't believe everything you see, right? Um, and not not all coaches are good coaches. Because anybody could be a coach, and nobody really tells you how much work it's really going to take. People go into business because they want freedom, and it's hard to come by. It is really hard to come by. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. Like, I'm going to be in business for myself, own my own salon, and not work as hard. And it's probably the hardest thing you will do, um, because you're responsible for every person, every every customer, every client, every employee. You're responsible for your image, and it's a lot of work. It is 24/7. I mean, there's no one who cares about their company that is not waking up in the middle of the night like, oh my God, this happened today, or I can't believe I have to do this tomorrow.
Oh, I forgot
And
this.
yeah, and the office and the paperwork and the crunching numbers, and no one tells you. It's everybody looks at the gross and not crunching numbers and keeping budgets and keeping everything aligned, and how to know when to grow and remodel, and how to know how much to spend on certain things. Yeah, I mean, the business of business is the ugly is the ugly side. Um, because most people, I think, wouldn't have gotten into business if they knew that part, right? You have the passion
Yeah.
and the fun. Like, doing hair is great and fun, and I love it. And I get to hang out listening to music and gossip with people all day long, right? That's the fun part. And so you go into business based on that dream, but you forget the business side of business. And it can be very ugly. It can
So
be.
what would you recommend or what would you suggest to somebody who's either just starting out or somebody in your industry? Um, if you had one solid piece of advice or tip for them on what you just said, what would it be?
Um, I joked about coaching, but I do have a coach. And I would say surround yourself. You have to surround yourself with the people you want to be like. And get a mentor. That was part of my reasoning for becoming part of Inacofure, because it's, if you look it up on their website, it's the elite salon owners across the country and the world. And I mean, who doesn't want to be at the top of their game? So you have to find mentors. It doesn't have to be in your industry. I would probably suggest have one in your industry and one or two that are not in your industry, because at the end of the day, business is business, but then there's industry specifics, and pick their brain. I mean, that group, it's people who are doing $26 million a year in hair. Not that I want to have 7 locations and 200 employees, but learn from their mistakes, and get ahead of the game. Unfortunately, I didn't have that available until, being in it 10 years. So now with the internet, and it's so much more available to you to get a mentor. And then, the other part of that is don't forget where you come from. And I saw an interesting post yesterday, and it was like, would you rather be at the top of low to mid successful people and be at the top of that? Or would you rather be at the bottom of the most successful people? And I just kind of read through the comments real fast, and I was like, it's such an interesting thing, because you'll always be somewhere in there, right? There's always people just starting out, less successful, less experienced, and there's always going to be people ahead of you. And so I don't know that there's really an answer in there, because you want to still help those that are just starting. You need to mentor people, and you always need a mentor. So you're always keeping your industry thriving, or it just falls apart.
And touching on that for just a second too, I know at least with our industry as well, we're totally separate worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing. And I think one of my biggest things when I started out was I thought I knew everything. I didn't want to ask for help. I was like, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna beat. And I wish I would have years ago just went to somebody who had more experience, said, how'd you get where you're at?
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised at how many entrepreneurs, business owners, people in your own industry are willing to say, hey, yeah, let me tell you a couple things. Now there's totally different extremes. There are the people who view everybody as competition and won't
Right.
share anything. And there's the people who are like you or like myself. It's like, oh, let's grab lunch or coffee and we're gonna sit down for about 10 hours and go through everything that I've ever experienced. and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and you get these people who are willing to mentor you or just even just have these conversations of stay away from this, look at this, be
Right.
wary of this. This is something I would strongly suggest. And that information is truly invaluable
Right.
because you can only get so far with your own devices. We only know so much.
Right.
And to get to that next level, you have to surround yourself with people who are either at that level or have been at that level or know what it takes to get to that level. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, is trying to find people to mentor me and or that I can go to and say, you know what, I'm here. How do I get here?
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
that's great.
And they're out there. I mean, I don't know if every industry has an organization, an association um to go to, but find, a company you admire, that's in your industry. And you're right, I'm a pretty competitive person, but I don't feel like the other salons in Clark County we're in competition. there's over what, 400,000 people, 450,000 people in Clark County. We couldn't do them all if we wanted to, you know, and we will gladly pass along, you know, like, hey, this is really not our thing. Call our friends over here. We can't get you in this week. Sounds like an emergency. Call our friends at the salon. You know, because you all grow together. And one other thing with the finding mentors that I think is interesting, when the first time we went and I applied for this group, the Inner Coiffure group, and I was just like in awe at all the people, you know, that I've admired through the years. And I chatted the one who does 26 million, he's in Atlanta. And he's like, I will give you everything. I'll give you my handbook, my budget, like I will just give it to you. And we're like, well, aren't you scared? Like people are they're gonna take your information. Like people are gonna steal your secrets. And he just laughed and he's like, you know why I give it? Because no one is willing to do the work that it takes to get there. He's like, at the end of the day, the numbers are all like, you know, if you take my budget and it's like 5% for office supplies, well, that works with any, you know, in any scenario. But he's like, are you willing to do what I do to be where I'm at? And a couple of them in that I talked to, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not willing to do that. So I know, like, I know at least I'm not willing to give up my entire life to have 7 locations and all this stuff. But people are willing to do it. And part of the problem, the ugly side, is most people are not willing to do the work. They want the instant Instagram famous influencer. And I'm pretty sure if you actually got an honest person who's an influencer and they'll tell you how hard it is and how many hours it takes, it's just business is hard. Business is hard, and you have to do the work and put in the hours and surround yourself with great people and create a team that sees the same vision, and that they're willing to go on the journey with you and work hard.
That's awesome. So thank you. First of all, thank you so much for being on. It's great to be able to interview you and do something formal, you know. If people wanted to contact you or reach out to you, I mean, obviously you're specialized in your local Vancouver, but if somebody was local or you just had questions for you, how could people find you? Or is there a website? Is there a phone number? Is there, you know, social links? How can people find you?
Of course, we have all the things. And our website, our Facebook, and our Instagram is all, oh, actually, I'm wrong. The website is the Utopia Salon. So the utopiasalon.com. And our social media is Utopia Salon Vanois, both Facebook and Instagram. And you know, I'm happy to talk to anybody. So whether it's about hair or not hair, just business, you know, mentoring an up and coming hairstylist or just a business person, I'm always happy to do that. And you could call the salon 360-573-4806. Yeah, just reach out to us. Reach out to me. I'm all over the place. I'm sure you'll see me somewhere. And yeah, I'd love to connect.
Thank you so much, Lisa. You rock. For those of you listening, as a reminder, check us out, habitsofinfluence.com. You can check out all the previous episodes and upcoming episodes. We are going to be on YouTube. Make sure to click the notification, little subscribe bell, or all the other fun stuff. A new episode airs every week, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks so much, Lisa.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.